So what's the most effective way for those at the top to help those at the bottom? Well, to answer that, I spoke to one billionaire who's well known for how much tax he pays and also just how much he gives away. John Caudwell, he made his vast fortunes in the early days of the mobile phone revolution with a chain of retail stores. But since selling the business, he's devoted his time to, well, other investments and philanthropy. So I've come to meet him right here at one of his homes in central London to find out if he thinks billionaires are part of the inequality problem or are they the solution? Let's go and find out. John, great to have you on the show. Let's start with this. I'm wondering, John, as one of the world's billionaires, does your vast wealth bring with it, I don't know, a responsibility, if you will, and certain societal obligations?
I don't think the money automatically brings that with it. I think your own sense of self-worth and conscience is what drives that. You know, some billionaires are very, very happily to be wealthy and do nothing for other people. My goal all my life is to leave the world a better place than I found it. And what do I need all that money for? So, you know, I want to change people's lives. It's not even a selfless act, because in the act of doing that, I get an immense spiritual satisfaction and happiness. So I'd find it difficult to live without that happiness. So it means that philanthropy and charitable works is an endemic part of who and what I am.
Well, let's talk about closing the gap and decreasing inequality. John, how do we do that? Because let's be frank, because some will say, you know, billionaires are part of that problem.
Well, I wish I knew the answer to that. And my way of addressing it is to continually campaign via the media, just via meetings and so on, that people pay the taxes in the country that they made the money in, and don't bust a gut trying to get your tax down to zero like the big companies, because all you're doing is destroying the fabric of society just for somebody's extra wealth. And the other thing is, for the wealthy people especially, join the Giving Pledge and donate at least 50% of your wealth away. Donate it during your lifetime if you can, but if you don't do it during your lifetime, just at least leave it in your will, because it'll do good in years to come, and you won't even have the pain of losing your wealth.
And you talk about, say, paying tax. I mean, the wealth tax, you know, there are many who in favour, who argue for a wealth tax, and of course that is taxing assets like this wonderful London home of yours, and then redistributing that money to healthcare or fighting, you know, the climate change problems. A wealth tax, a good idea? Or?
Not really, because it could create a situation of hardship, if you can call it hardship, for certain people who might be struggling with cash flow or in a difficult environment. And you could say, well, surely they could sell something off to pay it.
Yeah, because you're not going to get a lot of sympathy on that argument, are you?
No, I know it's not going to get a lot of sympathy, but it is a real point. What I'd like to see is what the politicians have already done in multiple countries, which is setting a minimum corporation tax. I'd like that minimum corporation tax to be higher, and I'd like every country in the world to do it. And if they did that, the tax revenue for the world in its entirety would go through the roof, and nobody would be able to hide from it.
Well, since you have the title as being the biggest taxpayer as an individual here in the UK, you've always said you've had a moral obligation, right, to pay your share. And you mentioned these corporations and others, billionaires, who pay less tax through legal means. Does that anger you?
Yeah, it does, because it shows a total lack of humanitarian interest. Because, you know, if you boil it down, if somebody fiddles the tax, and I'm going to be quite strong on this point, they are killing a child. And it's really as simple as that. Because there are so many children that would not die all around the world, but in Britain as well, that would not die if there was money there to cover them. And it's not just children, it's everybody. You know, the health service now needs a massive investment to save people's lives from the neglect that's gone on over the last 2 years because of COVID. And that service needs to be ramped up massively. And for that, you need money, training, and recruitment of all the right people to try and catch up on that backlog. And if we don't pay our taxes, we can't afford it.
On that point then, okay, if you could get the world's billionaires to pay either more tax or give more to philanthropic causes, which one would you choose?
Well, the billionaires argue that they don't want governments wasting their money and they'd rather give it to philanthropic causes. I, in general, think that's a poor excuse, and that they probably don't do enough of the philanthropic causes and use that as an excuse for avoiding tax. So I don't swallow that argument. So look, I'm not dead against the idea that you suggested of a wealth tax. I just think there'd have to be some sensitivity in certain cases with certain people because of the situation they might just, from a short-term point of view, find themselves in. But would I support a global wealth tax with every country in the world charging, let's say, 2% of the wealth every year? Yes, I would. Absolutely, I would. But I don't want to damage people. So there would need to be exceptions. Even though they're super wealthy, there are people out there that have got a lot of tangible wealth in paper, but may have no liquid assets. And so I would have some exceptions for them where you say, well, your wealth tax is accruing, you'll still have to pay it, but we'll give you 2 years or 3 years. You'll still pay the same amount, but we'll give you a short-term holiday. If that were the case, and it was global, I'd absolutely support that. You know, my wealth going down 2% every year, well, what does it matter to me? Because, you know, I'm giving 70% away anyway, during or after my lifetime. But I would want the money to be used properly and sensibly. And I am a massive critique of government in general, and all governments, for corruption, for wasting money, and for lack of due process.
John, do you think we can survive in a society, or even society surviving itself, where you've got the wealthy who are stunningly wealthy and the poor unable to feed themselves?
Well, you know, you can see a situation where there's a revolution in the future, because I don't think you can have the massive opulent wealth of the world's top, say, 1,000 billionaires, and probably you could extend that a lot further, because mine is astonishing wealth to most people. But, you know, when I see the wealth of Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, that's beyond comprehension. And especially in Jeff Bezos' case, inherited by not taking away the quality of what he's done, but inherited by the pandemic that's pushed customers his way. And I was campaigning for a long time with the UK government on a windfall COVID wealth tax on those people that have benefited out of COVID. And only one off, so it wouldn't have damaged them, it wouldn't have damaged the share price, just one off. So Jeff Bezos might have had a $50 billion tax bill on Amazon, if he could afford to pay it out of his cash flow. But it would have been appropriate. Would it have damaged Amazon? No, it's a short-term hit. They're still got massive, massive benefits from the COVID experience that's just gone by, and those benefits are going to continue.
John, I want to know this, is giving addictive? As addictive as making the money running your businesses?
I mean, for me, charitable giving is very addictive. The satisfaction spiritually and from a happiness point of view, changing somebody's life is really addictive. Equally, making money is really addictive. They both almost go hand in hand, you know. So if you could combine making money with giving it away, I think you've got a utopian life. And I think we need to try and find ways of recognizing charitable givers and helping them to find that pathway. Because some people have not found it, and if they did, they'd probably be addicted to it and go on to really make a difference.
Well, on that point, John Caudwell, a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.